before the inquiry even started. Budget speech as it relates to FINSAC. Mr. Shaw, in his presentation, made suggestions that the FINSAC assets, the assets that are held by FINSAC and I guess JRF, was to be taken back and given to the NHD. I do not know, I don't have any idea how he plans to do this. All I know is that these assets belong to someone else. Then some arrangement would have to be made as far as the borrowers are concerned. This is a meeting that should have been made with the borrowers from before the inquiry even started. And then Dr. Davis's suggestions to reopen the inquiry so Mr. Shaw could commit to testify. You know, and second, I figured that, I said to myself, I was incensed that Dr. Davis would be making light of such a serious situation. And as if it is funny, I take exception to him behaving the way that he behaves.
I agree. Shameful.
That is so, to me, that was so distasteful, you know, but I leave it at that. Now, in as much as Mr. Shaw, when I read what Mr. Shaw actually was suggesting, I don't get the feel of genuine concern for us, the borrowers. And I use the word borrowers because the inquiry report would show that not all the properties handed over to FINSAC and to Jamaica Redevelopment were for outstanding loans. So the affected persons, some of them were not debtors, and not, of course, not bad debtors as Dr. Davis had referred to them. Their titles were illegally used to acquire loans, unknown to them. Mr. Mishek Willis, who is here, he's one of the persons whose loan was taken on his title that he knew nothing about. We, the entrepreneurs who devoted our time, resources, and a passion to improve the quality of life for ourselves and for all Jamaicans, served our country unselfishly, were destroyed by policies from the Ministry of Finance back then, and robbed of our properties and assets illegally. Properties that we earned with honesty, integrity, blood, sweat, and tears, while visionless, lazy, and corrupt perpetrators who sit in our parliaments with little or no insight or skill to attract investments to rebuild Jamaica's economy, continue to steal what they didn't work for or earn. Why is it they cannot come up with at least one solid prospective investment opportunity to show to the IMF? Why are there not enough investable businesses in Jamaica now? FINSAC destroyed them. When did Jamaica start depending on outside investors? FINSAC destroyed our own investors. Our entrepreneurs, the members of our entrepreneurs from our association have long passed the point of believing that any of our governing bodies has the interest of the people at heart. Of course, we appreciate the fact that Mr. Shaw made every effort and accomplished having the inquiry take place. But how better off are we now for it? When a family member looks at a note from a suicide victim that reads, "I cannot go on one more day with the noose of FINSAC around my neck," provide food for his family. His years of suffering, he cannot see the light of the end of the tunnel. And this is what Dr. Omar Davis finds funny. Mr. Shaw knows full well that no one in the People's National Party administration has any intention of allowing the inquiry report to see the light of day. So let's not talk about integrity and sense of decency. There is no crime, and with exactness grinds he on. So in the end, he upholds justice, and then he will judge correctly.
All right. There you have it. Excerpt from the FINSAC inquiry. Greetings, everybody. Blessings. Good night. Good night. Welcome, 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 welcome. Denise, Sandy, Fitzroy, Angel. Yeah, welcome. Petal, how you doing? Greetings, everybody. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. It's 7:49. We were scheduled to be here at 7:30. My apologies, everybody. You all know the logistics. It's not easy. But the good thing is we are here in live and living colors. We are slated to be joined by Miss Eula Gray Baker and Mr. Meshach Willis. Mr. Willis is actually here, Petal, and if you look at his profile, you'll realize that his device is not connected. We're not able to see him. So can you have him just restart his device again, please? And we're not seeing Miss Eula Gray in the studio as yet. But good evening, everybody. Share the live. Tell a friend, tweet a friend. As you see the topic, we're talking about FINSAC. We are still on FINSAC. Why are we on FINSAC? Why are we talking about FINSAC? And let me say good evening to you, Petal. Are you there? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, Chopper. Can you hear
All right.
me?
Yes, loud and clear. Mr. Meshach Willis, his device is connected here. Well, his device is showing up, but he's not connected. So can you just walk him through that process for me, please? Yes. David, what's going on? Bert, good to see y'all. Welcome in, welcome in, welcome in. Share the program, guys. Get us up to 100 real quick so we can get started. We're talking about FINSAC, as you know. FINSAC was the instrument that was used back in the 1990s to mop up liquidity. Let's put it that way. to manage the assets that was the assets that were taken over by the Financial Adjustment Company, and what happened after the financial crisis. Bear in mind that in the 1990s, when we had that terrible financial crisis and collapse of our financial sector, it happened when other countries were just growing leaps and bounds. I'm not able to tell you why. All of it was based on bad economic policies. And that's the most I can say. Bad economic policies that tore the financial sector to pieces. Well-thinking Jamaicans, ordinary Jamaicans were severely impacted. People like Paul Chen Young, Eagle Merchant Bank, had to be in exile. I think he passed away sometime last year. There are several Jamaicans who are not here with us today. We have a responsibility to keep this matter alive in the psyche and the minds of Jamaicans. There are several Jamaicans out there today who have absolutely no idea as to what happened back in the 1990s. It is our duty to remind them of what took place then, with the view to prevent a reoccurrence. How about that? I think we have a responsibility to prevent a reoccurrence of the 1990s. The 1990s saw several businesses in Jamaica. And when I say several businesses, I'm talking about some of the greatest institutions in Jamaica fell victim to FINSAC. And I'm just rolling our theme here in the background for a moment. But it saw institutions that were landmark institutions, institutions that would have been around for over 100 years. And some of those institutions got hit by the FINSAC bug. Now, we can ask the question, what really happened? Now, we're hoping to be joined by persons who were a part of the financial system back then. They were young entrepreneurs. And I don't know if I want to use the word young, but they were entrepreneurs who were doing very well. And they would have lost it all because of that crisis. Meshach Willis, as you heard last week, he was here. He told us his story. And we're hoping to get him on this week again. We also have Miss Eula Gray Baker, which we are holding to get her on as well. Miss Baker's story is going to blow your mind. And I promise you, her story is going to blow your mind. I had a conversation with Mrs. Baker, who gave me a pretty good idea of what the landscape was back in the 1990s. And for those of you who are a student of history, you will appreciate getting this information. The government, well, Jamaicans have been calling for years for the release of a FINSAC report, which would outline exactly. By the way, we did have a commission of inquiry into the FINSAC affair, and that inquiry lasted for quite some time. But it has been decades, and we have not seen a report on FINSAC. That report was due while the PNP was in office, and that report was due while the JLP was in office. So both political parties had an opportunity to release such report, and it never happened. Both political parties would have given various excuses and reasons for report not to be concluded and presented. The Jamaica Labour Party at some point did outline that one of the reasons why they were unable to provide a report was because the chairman of the committee that chaired that report and who would have been responsible for putting it together, I think some members had passed. No. Fast forward to 2024, and we see Miss Eula Gray Baker. She's in the studio. We're going to bring her on in a minute. Fast forward to 2024. What we can now say is that the government of Jamaica, through the Ministry of Finance and the Minister of Finance, Dr. Nigel Clark, had made an announcement a few months ago that the long-awaiting FINSAC report, we will no longer be getting a FINSAC report. But no. Don't get excited. Don't get upset. I think he came through better than expected. The government has now announced that they will, instead of providing a FINSAC report, they're going to be providing the entire transcript of what took place during the period in terms of what was the investigation and the commission of inquiry, what was detected. So for me, a report really represents a summary of a transcript. So for the minister to be giving us the entire transcript, I think that's a plus for us. Now, when I spoke to someone earlier this afternoon, I was told that the process of uploading that information onto the website, which the government has paid for and is getting that together. The process of uploading is ongoing as we speak. Now, you must appreciate that this is not some one click and we go. It's going to take some time to get that information on the website so that every single Jamaican can have an opportunity to peruse what was discussed and what actually transpired. So the transcript for FINSAC will be up, will be uploaded very shortly, very soon, and every Jamaican will have an idea as to what transpired. Miss Eula Gray Baker is going to be joining us in a few minutes. We're also hoping that we will get Mr. Meshach Willis as well. He was here last week on audio, and we hope to have him this week on video. Why is it important for us to have this matter being discussed and ventilated continuously? Because, like I said before, there are several Jamaicans who have no clue what took place back in the 1990s. It's important for us to make sure that these things are on record. And we commend persons like Mr. Meshach Willis, and we commend people like Miss Eula Gray Baker for giving us the opportunity to get a personal insight as to what happened then, so we can have it on record and there's no watering down of the facts. We pride ourselves on presenting the facts, and that's what will guide this discussion this evening. So stick and stay. We going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Miss Eula Gray Baker. Stick and stay. We'll be right back.
So as the society moves towards becoming more online, we have to get all Jamaicans online. So can you imagine now, we were to say that for the persons who want to collect their path benefits, for example, instead of going down to the post office, we could just put it on your phone and you will see the money that you have on your phone. But how you're going to get onto that information highway so that that money gets to your phone? You have to go online, you have to have internet access. Not all of us can buy credit to get the internet. So what that mean then? So poor people who have to get part, they shouldn't be part of the information highway. They shouldn't be able to access the internet because they just don't have the money. No. So what is happening now is that we are beginning to see the internet as a public good. As a public good. And therefore, the government has a duty to ensure that whatever we conceive to be a public good, that the public has access to it. So we want everyone, poor, rich, middle income, to have access to the internet.
My name is Noel Chang. I'm a constable attached to the Mobile Reserve Division and the JCF SWAT team. I've been a member of this team for 2 fulfilling years. The training, of course, would have helped me to grow as well. I find it to be very fulfilling playing an active role in the crime fight and in developing my nation. Join the JCF and start a career.
All right, so welcome back, everybody. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Share the program, tell a friend, tweet a friend, tell a friend we're live. And we are now going to be joined by none other than Miss Eula Gray Baker. Mrs. Baker.
Yes, sir. Good
How
evening.
are you? I greet you well.
Well, I'm here waiting for a hurricane. And the hurricane don't name FINSAC, but because that one hit already.
Yes, and you
And
wouldn't
hit
want that
already.
one to hit again.
Oh, no one go through that one again.
Not at all, not at all. We're happy to have you on, and we're happy that you have decided to give us your insight into FinSac and what took place in the 1990s. It's a chapter that Jamaica really and truly would not want to repeat. But we like to use history and our past as our guide as we navigate the future.
Yes, sir.
You've survived the 1990s and FinSac, obviously.
I'm not so sure that I survive. I'm still trying. I'm still
We
trying
tried.
to survive.
Good,
Just-
good, good.
yeah.
Well, I've watched a couple of your videos and writings and your presentation during the period of the inquiry.
Mhm.
And I wanted to get your feeling and your perspective on what really happened. There's two aspects of this discussion
Mhm.
that I usually focus on. And one of my pet peeve is what is the cause and effect. What really caused FinSac? What's your view?
Okay. I'll start off by saying that I lived a few years in the United States. I returned to Jamaica in the early 90s. My husband asked me, he said he was in the construction industry. And he came home one evening and said, we have a whole lot of money coming in and my checks are bouncing all over the place and I can't understand what the heck's going on. Can you come down to my office and help me? So I did. On going to his office and looking at his general ledger and the payments made out and checks coming in and whatever, he had an account with NCB in Halfway Tree. And he had 2 demand loans. When when you get a demand loan, it has nothing to do with your checking account or your savings account. A demand loan is a different account. On that demand loan, you get the documentation which will state how much a month you need to pay, how much is the interest charges, and so on and so forth. Now, when I looked at one of his demand loans, one of the things that I observed was because a lot of the payments that went in, usually in the construction industry, when a person gets a project, sometimes they will direct the project owner to send all the payments to their bank rather than sending it to your office. Your office have to sign it to go deposit it and things like that. His went straight to his bank account. So from that account, they would take out the principal and the interest as is set out in the demand loan. Well, what I observed in the payments that he was making towards the demand loan is that the receipts that he got from the payment did not reflect the demand loan number. In other words, you have a demand loan and the number is 94563. Yet when you look at, and he made a $50,000 payment, the payment went to some other number. It didn't go to that number, to that demand loan.
So let me get a better understanding here, Mrs. Baker.
Mm-hmm.
What a demand loan meaning, if you take on let's break it down into the lowest common, the layman's term.
Right.
So I have a chicken farm,
Right.
and I raise chicken and sell, and I
Right.
want to expand.
Right.
So I go to the bank and I get a loan to build out 2 more
Okay,
chicken.
well, the first thing you're going to have to do, you have to have an asset, a collateral asset.
Good. So I bring my house.
You use
I
your
bring
house.
my house, paid off.
Use your
I
house.
bring
Say
my
your
house
house.
as collateral.
Right. Say your house value $3 million. What
Yes.
you want to borrow is $500,000.
Right.
So you carry your title for your house and you give it to your bank and you say, this is what I'm offering as collateral.
Right. To
No.
stand security for my loan.
Right. No, you get a period of time when the loan is going to start for when you should finish paying it off.
Right.
It could be 3 years. whatever, it's set up by the bank. So when we noticed that, I looked at the demand loan documents and recognized that a lot of the payments that he made, some of them went to the demand loan, and yet the interest charges for that demand loan is put on his checking account as well, which is you're compounding the interest, because the demand loan is a separate entity from your checking account or a savings account if it's a savings
So
account.
you weren't paying. You were actually, whatever money you make, you would
Right.
bring it directly to your account, and then they would subtract
They
from
would
your
take
account
out,
the payments.
right, the payments.
And you're
and
saying that the
interest.
payments,
Right.
the payments were going to not just your account, but there were payments being made from your account to some fictitious account?
To some other fictitious, so some other account, which we
Oh.
knew nothing of. So in confronting the bank with these issues, we realized that, let me put it this way, my husband at the time had a very good friend that worked within the same banking institution, who divulged to him that what was happening is that employees inside that bank, once he left the bank with his collateral, remember you only borrowed 500,000 from it, and it's 2 million. So them say the 2 million is only 1.5 million leave on it, but it's not being used. So what they did is someone would go to your title and borrow, say, another 500,000 from your title, and you don't know
Without your knowledge?
without your knowledge. So this is going on month after month after month. Now, what is happening? It turns out that you're paying more on the loan, you're paying interest. They're compounding the interest on your checking account as well. So you're paying whatever amounts that keep rising. Now, when you sign that demand loan, say you signed it at an interest at 18%, which is what he had signed, all of a sudden he gets a letter from the bank saying that your interest rate as of such and such a date is going to be 50%. And then later on it goes up and goes up. It eventually his own eventually ended up at 120%.
From 18%.
From 18% to 120%. There were other debtors who went up as far as 180%. And in that point, I said to him, listen, if we have to borrow the money to pay off the loan, because it don't make sense, not even if you're running drugs, you can afford to continue those payments. It doesn't make sense. But then we started consulting with other people in the construction industry, because, the industry has the Master Builders Association.
Yes.
And they were members in there going through the same things. And in talking to each other, we realized everybody is going through the same problem. Wow. So what it turns out to be is that when we realize we're losing money, and then being termed on the air as being bad debtors, yes, because we're not paying back the loan, it's because the banks were thieving our money.
But this is crazy. You go in with your title, yes, as collaterals for a loan. Mm-hmm. You take out 10% or 15% of mm-hmm. your title, and the bank managers mm-hmm. or whomever within the bank,
yeah,
would have used the balance of your title to take
loans for themselves. And of course, they are depending on your payments to pay back what they're taking.
So and keep doing that.
And keep doing on and on. Because you see, once you give them your title, you don't have access to it anymore because it is in the bank. Now, after a period of time, when people realized what was happening, and one particular gentleman I remember, I said to him, do me a favor, go down, because the same thing was, he didn't even know he was FINSAC. He went down to the title's office to get a copy of his title, and he went down there the afternoon, probably about 3, 4 o'clock. And the lady is searching. She can't find his title. So he said to her, I can't wait. Let me come back tomorrow. He left, went back the following day. And she's searching, can't find him title. And then she turned around and looked at him and said, tell me something. Were you FINSAC? He says, well, I don't have no loan, so I don't know that I was FINSAC, but them come to throw me out of my property. So when he said that, she immediately, the person in the title office, immediately closed the drawer of the filing cabinet and told him, you need to talk to whoever was the head of the titles office at the time. Because apparently all the titles, now, when Omar Davis testified at the inquiry, one of the statements he made verbatim was the banks were dealing in activities that turned my hair white, in illegal activities that would turn my hair white. And when the commissioners asked him to explain, he pleaded the fifth. He wouldn't explain. So what we eventually found out, these were the activities that he, Omar Davis, was referring to. And rather than put whatever strategies he need to put in place to stop this, prevent it, whatever, they didn't. They didn't.
Keep silent. Said nothing.
Yeah. No, when Bruce Golden got in power, I sent you a copy of the statement that Bruce made in Parliament when he went in, addressing FINSAC that something has to be done.
Yes.
Because by this, all of these government ministers know. They're all in the same Parliament. So they know. No, instead of sitting down and at the inquiry, persons from the Bank of Jamaica, bank managers from other banks testified and told the commissioners in their testimony that they begged Omar Davis to let them go through the documents with every debtor and sort it out. And he didn't. He refused.
Why would this be such a hard thing to do? I mean, obviously, as the Minister of Finance, your responsibility is to ensure that when crises like these occur, you put measures in place to mitigate.
Exactly. The measures he put in place was to hide it from the public and to hide it from the debtors, because we didn't know that was what was happening unless you knew somebody in the bank who would come and say, listen, this is what is happening. I'm
wondering if the average Jamaican, as someone who have followed the FINSAC story, Mrs. Baker, for years, I watched this. I'm a 70s baby. I grew up in the 90s. I know what was happening in the 90s. I was very cognizant when Central National Bank got closed down. I had an account with Century, right? I'm familiar with insurance companies, Eagles and the Delroy Lindsays. I'm familiar with what occurred then. But what I did know, and what you have just enlightened me with now, is what really was happening on the inside.
Exactly.
Because I didn't know that there were bank managers and bank executives who were utilizing persons' assets.
That was what happened. You had Mr. Willis on last week. That is what happened with Mr. Willis.
He mentioned something to this.
Yeah, Mr. Willis borrowed 140-something,000, and he didn't even use all of it. He only used what he needed. He did not use the total 140,000, and he lost his house for $11 million.
And an $11 million house in the 1990s is close to a $40-50 million house today.
Wow, that's right. And if you see the condition
you have committed is being ambitious and want to do well for himself and his family.
That's all he did. Try to lift himself and his family up. And I tell you something, Mr. Willis, he never said on air, but I've been in a very close relationship with him, following him what he's doing, assist him when he needs assistance and so on,
Yeah.
and when I can. And I know at one point his daughter, when this happened, his psychologically, one of his daughters couldn't deal with it. Her mother couldn't even say, go down the shop, go buy something. She wouldn't come out of the house. She lock up in the house and wouldn't come out. She don't want to see outside. One of the sons that he had going to UTech, he had to take them out of UTech because he didn't have the money to send them back. And the son came home one evening and said, then daddy, suppose me get a gun and go out there and shoot somebody and get them money so we can get something to eat. What's wrong with that? And his father said, no, that would not be right. That is not right. You could not do that. Him said, but look at what you say. You claim you do it the right way, and look at where we are. This is his young teenage son.
Mm-hmm.
You said you did it right, and look at where you. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there were so many people. Let me tell you, Mr. Levy, Man Levy from Mandeville.
Yeah.
Mr. Levy lost 17 properties.
17.
Hold on, let me make sure. Because Mr. Levy, when Mr. Levy was FINSAC, he took up his family and left for Florida because he couldn't deal with it. Mr. Levy decided to come back to Jamaica a few months later to a friend's funeral. He went to the funeral. On his way back home, he had a driver driving him. He decided to stop at a friend's bar, have a drink with a friend. As him come out of the car, them shoot him and kill him. A couple weeks later, the very driver was shot and killed. His wife came down to help straighten up things with the business and, sort out whatever left to be sorted. 3 months after that, she died in her sleep of an aneurysm. Mr. Harold Ramsey, he's the one that lost, I think, 17 properties. Now, Mr. Ramsey had his account. I don't remember which bank. However, Mr. Ramsey was the client of the year for 2 years straight. His bank manager tell him, if it wasn't for you, my bank would not be afloat. His 17 properties, his doctor advised him not to go to the inquiry because his heart couldn't take it. And when he realized that him not getting back a penny, Mr. Ramsey tell his wife, who was a nurse, listen, I don't want nothing else to eat, just leave me alone. And he lay down in his bed until he died, starved to death. Literally, just lay down and starved to death. You see,
I'm speechless because as someone who followed this story,
yeah, but all these things never came to.
Never.
You see, it never came to the public. There was a couple in Mandeville too, the church people.
Yes, I heard of that.
You heard that one. Never showed up to church, and when they go and check the house, they had to call the police to get into the house. Found the both of them hanging from the ceiling.
Yes.
With a note on the table said, I
Yes.
cannot go on one more year with
Yes.
the noose of FINSAC around my neck. There was another lady that lived in Stony Hill. Her husband was also in the construction industry. He was acting kind of strange, she said. She couldn't understand what was going on. So she left from upstairs to go downstairs to get him some breakfast one day. And coming up back, she seemed push something underneath the chair that he was sitting on. So she didn't say anything to him. She gave him the breakfast and ate it. And she didn't go back downstairs. She went in the room and tried to find a way. When she bent down and looked under the chair, is a gun. He was going to shoot himself. There was one man in Stony Hill, the day they were supposed to come and throw him out of his house. His wife and daughter was there. He said nothing to them. He lived in Cherry Gardens. The morning he got up and he went to a gas station and bought a gallon of gasoline. Came back home. The daughter and the wife was in the front of the house. He went to the back room in the house, sprinkled it with the gasoline. And while he was in there, he just struck a match and set it on fire. He died in there. The wife and daughter was able to run out. And I could tell you umpteens of stories like this. To the point where I literally, because the reason I became president of the association, we found an association, the FINSAC Association of Entrepreneurs. Never Box, who was in construction, he was the one who came up with the idea. He was the president of the association. And I helped him with just about everything. David Wonken, who was an attorney.
I remember David Wonken, yes.
David
Yes.
gave us an office in his room in his office that we could use as an office. And within months, Neville's wife called me one day to say Neville not well, he's in the hospital. Within a few months, I didn't even reach to visit him. In a couple of days, them called me Neville dead. He had 3 cancers in his body. My husband was diagnosed not even 1 month after that with cancer, with prostate cancer. And I know it's distress. But I had the knowledge to know what to give him. And he lived with it for 25 years. Until last December, he passed.
Wow.
But I had to bring him, I had to stop concentrating, because when they come to throw you out of the house, you don't get notice.
Well, that's what Mr. Willis was saying.
Yeah, they just show up there one morning and with a truck with some bunch of hooligans in it and tell you, get out, get out, get out, it's time you get out, and they just throw your things out. We had gone to court to ask them to give us time to find somewhere to live. And the gentleman who got our house, his name was Joshua Thomas, and I'm not afraid to call his name because it's his name on our house title. And he moved in here with a Nicholas Manley and another lady. And he refused to give us time, not even a week, to find somewhere to live.
Why were they so brutal in even the takeover of properties, knowing the trauma that people are going through?
I wish I knew. But
and the policy that caused this, Mrs. Baker, the economic policy that was pursued by the then government and the then Minister of Finance. Are you aware of what actually transpired that trigger these high interest rates?
That is going to be for another day, because it's a lot of financial engineering and shenanigans.
Yes.
And they all knew and pretended as if they didn't know. Remember the Butch Stewart Initiative?
Yes, I remember the daily input of foreign exchange.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. But there is a paper that I'm doing that will explain. It's about 35 pages long so far. Will explain really what went on. But you would believe that as a government whose responsibility it is, they're the servants of the people. They're supposed to see that government run good. As far as I am concerned, that House of Parliament is filled with a bunch of criminals. No less. No less.
That's some. One of the reasons why I am very intrigued and want to pursue and highlight this period, Mrs. Baker, is because there are young people out there in Jamaica today who have absolutely no idea as to where we are today as a country and how further we could have been.
There could have been, exactly.
I think there are young people need to also appreciate that the drivers for the
of this
economy
one were the working
persons
people.
like you.
Exactly. Remember
The
what
class,
the term they used to call
entrepreneurs.
Jamaica, the paradise of the Caribbean? Who made
Yes,
it that way? It wasn't the politicians.
right. It
And
is. It
then
is.
what happened is that now the politicians found a way
Mhm.
by using that to attain properties for themselves,
Yes.
because
Yes.
that's what they did.
Mhm.
That's what they did.
And that's why it's important. And that again is why it is important for us to have. And I appreciate persons like yourself who continue to highlight these things and to put it in the psyche of young Jamaicans and Jamaicans on a whole, because it's important for us not to make that mistake again.
Exactly.
And the truth is, some of the players, some of the major players who are around during that period, who were the decision makers and the movers and shakers,
Mhm.
and some of them were the architects
Mhm.
here for the crisis.
That's right.
Some of those
Because
very persons, Mrs. Baker, are still here with us today.
yes, yeah, as a matter of fact, there is one JLP minister who was trying to buy a house up in Cherry Gardens. Now, the gentleman who owned that house was actually a PNP man, and he grew up in Trench Town, and him say
Yes.
he must get a nice house to move him mama out of Trench Town and put her up in Cherry Gardens. And this minister insists on buying this house. And it was Bruce Golding who called him in a meeting one day and tell him, do not buy that house. It doesn't look good.
Mhm.
He tried anyhow.
Yeah.
He tried anyhow. So there are, as a matter of fact, there's a whole list of persons who got write-off. A lot of them government ministers.
Yes, and that again is another part of the story that has not been told.
That's
Has not
right.
been ventilated, because
That's
there
right.
were some persons who did it,
Yeah,
and they came out unscathed, and
unscathed.
there were others who
They bought FINSAC properties for little and nothing,
yeah.
because our house, the gentleman who bought it paid 22 million for it. And within, he moved in, repainted it. And, but God doesn't sleep, because he has 2009 or 10, he has been putting it up on the market for sale. Not in Jamaica. He has put it up in the US for 85 million US.
Wow.
He has put it up in Canada. He has put it up in England. He now has it in Switzerland here, and it cannot be sold. He cannot
God
sell
don't like
it.
ugly.
God don't like ugly.
God don't like ugly.
Mm-hmm.
God don't like
That's
ugly.
right.
It's a period, guys, that we have to continue to highlight, because we are now learning some things, and I'm thankful, because I'm learning things I never even dreamt exist. I knew there were shenanigans, I knew there were problems and issues, but who could have told me that inside the very institutions that we look to protect our earnings, to
That's
give
right.
us guidance on how to manage our money, they were the same ones who were manipulating
Who are manipulating and use it to their benefit.
to their
That's
benefit.
what they've done.
Now, based on what came out of the inquiry, Mrs. Baker,
Mhm.
did any of these persons were they highlighted first of all and brought to book?
Well, not necessarily per se. Omar Davis gave a testimony. Dr. Carl Bly gave a
Yes.
testimony, and he was very damning to his own party.
Oh, absolutely, he was. Yes,
What
yes.
the testimony he gave. There were no other government ministers really that participated, but Errol Campbell, who was the manager of FINSAC, because first of all, when they formed FINSAC, my understanding is that Ernst and Young, who is the biggest accounting firms,
The law firm, the accounting firm, yes.
right, advised the then Minister of Finance that it is illegal for a government to form a private entity and use it to take people's properties and dispose of them.
So you're saying that the company that was formed,
FINSAC,
specific
they
to deal
formed,
with
right, they
before
formed
FINSAC.
FINSAC and Refin Trust. However, what they did, they found this man, Dennis Jocelyn, who was an
Yes, the Texan billionaire.
right. But he when they found him, he formed Beale Bank. Remember Beale Bank? Yeah, that's the
Yes.
first company he formed. He formed it in Texas and he formed it in Jamaica. I have a feeling, I don't know, but why give it the name Beale Bank? Is it to give the public the impression that it is a bank?
And wasn't it a bank?
No, it's not. He's a collection agency. And so is Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation. Now, the reason I bring that up is number one, in the United States, a collection agency cannot charge interest on any loan that is declared as bad debt. It is illegal.
And they declared all these accounts as bad debts.
Bad debts, right? Because
That's why they were even sold in the first place.
That's right, bad debtors.
Yes.
So why is it? That's why Omar Davis changed the Money Lending Act to make it appear as if that these institutions were banked. Number one, Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation is also formed in the state of Texas and in Jamaica.
Yes.
Are they a foundation? What does a foundation do? A foundation collect money to help people who are less fortunate.
Yes.
All of the money that he collect go overseas. There's the contract that the government signed with Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation. Jamaica is supposed to collect 15% of every property that was sold. And I remember Dr. Clark stating a few years ago that they were not collecting that 15%. So every penny them collect, them send it overseas. So even what should have come back into the Jamaican taxpayers' coffers, we're not. We're not. To whose benefit? To whose benefit?
Oh, wow.
And why?
Dr. Blight, as you mentioned earlier, cited, he went as far as to suggest that some of his political colleagues may have benefited from what he dubbed insider trading in terms of how their debts were handled during the 1990 financial meltdown. He's suggesting that they were insider trading.
Yeah, because a lot of them got write-offs. I have a list of them.
Oh, wow. Dr. Blight told the FINSAC inquiry on Thursday, July 21st, that there was a need for the commission to inquire into what loans were written off during the period between the failure of the banks and their takeover by the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the time, the government entity was FINSAC.
Yes, sir.
And up to the time of the sales to the American Jocelyn, who owned the Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation.
Yeah.
Now, there's another part of it, Mrs. Baker, that I'd love for you to clarify for us, because I don't know if anybody understands what happened. And guys, I'm putting a link in the chat here. If you guys want to jump in and ask a few questions, please feel free to do so. But there's a part of it that still bothers me, Mrs. Baker. At one point, when they decide to sell this debt to Jocelyn out of Texas, the local businessmen and women like yourself offered to repurchase the debt.
Yes,
in other words,
there were persons, including my husband, who got purchasers that would have paid more for the debt than what they sold it for.
And why they did not give it to you?
Your guess is as good as mine, sir.
No, if
As
it
a matter
is,
of fact, I told you the morning that we learned that our property was going to be sold. You see, when the inquiry started, I did not allow my husband to come because emotionally he could not have dealt with it. The day they threw out of the house for 2 weeks straight, he never spoke. Not a word come out of his mouth. So I never made him go to the inquiry until it was time for him to testify. And the morning that we were going down, there was an area where I passed a car. And for some reason, my mind drew to it. So I kept driving, made the bend, go down. When I'm on back to Trafalgar Road, I looked in my rear view mirror and the car was behind me. So I said to him, somebody's following us. He says, how you know? I said, because he has been following us since we left home. So when I drove into the car park at the Pegasus, I stopped at the security barricade and I told the guy, I said, that red car following us, don't let him in here. He has been following me from I left home. He said, okay, miss. And no sooner I drove through, he let the barrier down. So the guy had to turn back. But my husband was so traumatized that what I really had to do to get his mind back focusing, I had to sit him down and I said, listen to me. Anytime you die, I don't have enough money to buy a coffin big enough to fit a house in it. Let it go. Let it go. It's just material.
so you had to just wean your mind
You
off
just
of it.
have to your mind off of it.
How does one do that, though, Mrs. Baker?
But
You
it's
worked all your life.
that wasn't the only property. We lost 4 properties.
Yes.
4 properties. It was, we had taken them to court to ask them to give us time, and Mrs. Malahoo Fort was the judge. And the gentleman says, no, we're not giving them any more time. And Mrs. Fort just said to us, Mr. and Mrs. Baker, I'm sorry, it's the law. What I can't force him to give you time. And that's what they did with most of the people. There was one woman in Stony Hill that called me the morning that they were throwing her out. And when I drew, because having been through it, I know what she's going through, and she didn't, she was alone. She used to make mattress and sell them. And the morning I went up to her house, the woman was literally on the outside with the urine running down her legs. I mean, painful. And the police and the other reggae they come to empty her house, just laughing as if it was a joke.
Yes. I heard even the minister at one point, took it as a funny, as a joke. In other words, he didn't saw it as something important enough to be serious about.
Yeah.
And that's the former minister of finance.
Mm-hmm.
Under whose watch this took place.
What they used to do, they used to go. I guess they had a list of all the properties, because someone called my husband one day and asked him, are you FINSAC? And he says, yes. Why you asked? Because he was just coming from a home of one of those ministers where they had a list of the properties, deciding who wants which one.
Oh?
Yes, right. That's
so
right.
They were auctioning properties.
Yeah, they were taking which one, this one I want, this one, want that one. That is that's how heartless.
And
The
again,
thing about, you want to know one of the bad thing about it, there was a woman in somewhere in St. James. She migrated eventually. They didn't even take her house and throw her out with her things. They took even the things she had in her house. everything, furniture, everything.
Took everything.
And she had paid. She borrowed the money and she paid it in full. When she went back to the bank down in St. James to collect her title, and they searched, they couldn't find it. They tell her her title gone to FINSAC. She pay off her loan, you know.
Yes.
She paid it off in full, and they eventually sold her property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes.
Will Jamaica ever recover from this?
Well,
Will
my
Jamaica
philosophy is that every member in parliament are just there for retirement benefits. No more.
Will there ever be, you know, justice for these people? Because I am a little bit disturbed as to how we can live as a country with this thing hanging over our heads. And I'm happy that the minister of Finance has now decided that the transcript should be released. I want to play this interview here, Mrs. Baker, Miss Valerie Dixon. I'm going to play a couple pieces of it here because she made some comments here at one point. Well, she, in the initial stages, she gave us what she believed was the cause of the crisis. And her story, I know you're familiar with her story.
Yeah.
As to how she lost hers. You know, guys, these are ordinary Jamaicans who were the drivers in the 1980s. After we coming out of the 70s, where we lost a significant part of our GDP, and Jamaica went to the precipice of collapse. It was young business people. It was the entrepreneurs who brought us back to 12 and 8% growth by 1999. It was the manufacturing sector. It was productivity that brought us up.
But you know, the thing about it, you know,
people, it was the Eula Gray Bakers and the Valerie Dixons and the Meshach Willis.
They went out of their way to sabotage us even after that. And in my personal experience with them, because I was a fashion designer,
yes,
and I got a grant from the European Union for $1 million. And I used it. I opened a little boutique in New Kingston on Trafalgar Road and made up some designs. I went overseas and did fashion shows. In one of the shows that I was doing in Florida, I met a gentleman who was one of the principals of the Miami Heat, the football team.
Yes.
And we were actually at a trade show. He came and he saw some of my stuff and he said to me, I have a dress there he would like to buy for his wife, but he would like her to fit it. And she wasn't with him the day, so he wanted to know where I was staying, and he would bring her to fit it. So I gave him my address. It so happened that he was on the street next to the street that I was staying at. So the next day he came over and brought her. She's a Pakistani woman that wear the hijab and everything.
Yes.
Long sleeve and whatever. And I brought the dress and she tried it, and she bought 3 dresses. And he left and he went home and he called me shortly after and he said to me, you know, is it possible I can make arrangement with you to make dresses for Pakistani women in the United States, because they don't find the type of stuff that I had at the time was conducive to what they wear. They have to be covered up totally. And every time they need clothes, they have to go back or send back to family in Pakistan to buy it. So I said, sure. So I said to him, do me a favor, prepare me a letter, you know, stating what you want so I can take it back to Jamaica, to the Jamaica Manufacturers Association. And he gave me the letter and I brought it back. And this is back about probably 95, 96. Gave it to the JMA and waiting for the response. Until today, not a response. Not one response. So what I did, you know, God is good. That's all I can say. I went back to Chicago to do a fashion show there. And I don't know how Macy's, you know, the big company
Yes.
Macy's in the
Yes.
States.
Oh, yes.
I don't know where they got my name or how they heard of me. About a week after I did the show, I got an email from Macy's, and they're offering to put my clothes in their store.
Wow.
And whichever amount of store that I want. By that time, I don't have enough clothes. So my
A
daughter,
little Jamaican. Eh? With a little
yes,
story
it's
to
like in
it.
Jamaica. We only have
Yeah.
like few pieces. My daughter said to me, Mom, it's no point. You do it because you don't have enough to carry. I said, I'm not carrying enough. I go with if it's 2 piece, the 2 piece may carry. And I decided, I responded, and they set me up with a program they have, did all the paperwork and so on. And I had them placed in Macy's in Aventura Mall in Florida. And they went very well. As a matter of fact, from there, Macy's was going to open stores in Dubai, and I got stuff in Dubai, in Japan. And a friend of Jamaica, of mine in Jamaica, heard about it and had it on the Facebook page. When the Ed Bartlett came out and said that they were bringing down from overseas designers to help Jamaican designers to do this and do that and whatever. And she posted out there and said, Jamaican designers don't need nobody from foreign to tell them to do nothing. So Yola Gray asked her how she do it. Ask her how she did it. You see, so they try to keep you down. As a matter of fact, I tell you something. I opened the store on Trafalgar Road, and the young lady I had in there called me one day. She says, Miss, somebody from JBDC came here
Development Bank.
need to talk to you. She says she don't think you know her because she doesn't know you, but she know of you. And she left her number. So I took her number and I called her. And what she told me, she says, they're asking her for a lot of documentation and things. She says, don't send any more to them. You're not getting that loan. They're sabotaging you. Yeah.
But why would they though? I mean,
and it was Carl Samuda who called me to a meeting with JBDC, Jampro, and set it up and tell them, let Yola have this so that she can start a thing going for Jamaica, get our clothes, them designers overseas and so on. They sabotaged me. So all I did, went and locked down the store and went overseas.
Wow.
Yeah. That's the Jamaican. That's our Jamaica. Yeah. That's how we treat each other.
Yeah. Well, let's listen to Miss Valerie for a quick moment, and we'll come right back to you.
Okay.
Madam.
FINSAC experience at the end of the day being situated in a historical context. The observer writes about it to this effect that the financial shock, which began in 1991 in Jamaica, ballooned unchecked over the next 5 years until it exploded with a catastrophic bang in 1996. The explosion left shrapnel scattered over the financial landscape, which still impacted on the economy so many years later. Sister Valerie Dixon is a survivor of that shock that the observer talk about, a survivor of the government's response to the financial crisis of the 1990s. And she's, as we have said, written her book, Too Black to Succeed, the FINSAC Experience, on the phone lines. Lady President of the UNIA Kingston chapter, educator, author, entrepreneur, and grandmother. My sister Valerie Dixon,
So what I want to bring out this morning is that a lot of people do not understand where this thing came from. And I want to just read a little from an appendix that was written in the Observer some time ago. It says, when Omar Davis, then PNP finance minister in the 1990s, began the process of dismantling the Central National Bank, it was done immediately after the Don Crawford-run entity had bought a significant sum of US dollars at a few dollars more than the price that the official exchange rate indicated. The bank did nothing which other banks were not doing in a time when an inept PNP government was struggling with managing a market economy which it knew little or nothing about. What the sale of those dollars did was revealed that the very same finance ministry was covertly, that means underground, dispatching agents with huge sacks of cash in the trunks of their cars to buy US dollars at prices above the official exchange rate. The money was stolen eventually. With blood rushing to its head when this action was revealed, an embarrassed PNP government set about withdrawing public funds from the Central National Bank, making it publicly known. And in the process, it started or triggered a run on the bank, which was seemingly designed to end its life. That, however, is a sad history for the most progressive bank existing in Jamaica at that time. So if you withdraw money from the most progressive bank at the time, what do you think is bound to happen? It is going to trigger what is known as a domino effect. Everybody, there's going to be a run or a rush on the bank for people trying to get out their monies. And we do not understand, most of us, what the effect or the repercussions or the consequences of such a run on a bank would actually do. Because if you affect one thing over here, it is going to affect other things over there.
All right, so that takes us, Val, to your own personal experience, which you wrote about in the book with FINSAC. Let us go there. And you and your husband, you were in the construction industry. Talk to us about that.
Yes. And I think the whole world understands that when you're in the construction industry, unfortunately, you have to be the one who is, well, it wouldn't be wise for you to cap that job you have out of your own pocket. So you are dependent on the banking system to finance you upfront, because in construction, you have to put down the building, go along, you can then certify that the work is done so you can get paid from the client. But in the meantime, you have your expenses such as salaries and wages, you have your utility bills, you have your suppliers, you have everybody to pay until you get paid. So when your bank collapses, which was Workers' Bank, and you are now faced with not being able to get funding, what do you think is going to happen? Your creditors are going to be down on you. In other words, everything now comes crashing down on you, and your only fault or crime was to go and borrow money that you must use, because nobody's going to really, as I said, finance people's houses, buildings, shopping malls, whatever, out of their own pocket, unless you're one of those types. But anyway, let me just quickly go on. So you are faced with Hobson's choice, which is no choice at all. You have to give collateral in order to secure these loans. And by collateral, we mean you have got to mortgage something or give up something for the bank to say, you want $1 million? Bring 40,000 acres worth of property come. So the bank holds on to that.
Same thing you were talking about there.
Yeah. And you know, one of the things, that you never borrow no money from Jamaica Redevelopment, you know.
Yes.
Why should you be paying them back?
Precisely.
With Don Crawford, I know one, they were trying to work a thing on him. They called him to Jamaica House one Saturday evening for a meeting. Because what they wanted, from my understanding from Don, is for him to give them shares in the bank. And Don told them no, because he has family and relatives and friends overseas that will give him the money he needed. When he was leaving that meeting that Saturday night, he decided to stop out by Hope Road and Trafalgar Road there and see them selling the Gleaner and pick up a copy of the Gleaner. And big headlines in the Gleaner saying how Don Crawford has signed over how much percent of him bank to them. When not no go so.
Jesus have mercy.
Yes, that's your government. That's right. You know how many companies, you know how many titles ministers are names are on. Some of them put them in them attorney's name. Some of them turn them names back to front. Them put it in all way and have people's properties in them name. So when you see them sick and suffering out there, me not sorry for some of them.
Because people would have taken their own lives because of their action.
Exactly. Somebody's blood paid for it.
Yeah, it's a sad period. It's a sad period. And what is so sad is that a mechanism is in place, a government is in place, a minister is in place who could have done a lot more to prevent to cauterize what was happening.
But it wasn't in their best interest. It wasn't in their best interest.
Am I to believe, Mrs. Baker, that they allowed this to happen so that they could benefit on the back end?
Yes, yes.
You really believe that?
Yes, there was one company that I know right now that they took over. It was valued over 300 million US and they paid 2 million for it. And his government minister now part of it. Partners and directors in it. Them changed the name. That's all they did. Change the name.
So they sat back and allowed it?
Yes.
Because they would benefit from it?
Because they would benefit.
And do you believe that that was one of the reasons why they were reluctant in releasing the report?
That's right. That's right. If you're going to release it, remember that people are still alive who know what happened.
Yes.
And then you go repeat the full thing because the testimonies are there. The testimonies are all there.
And we discussing this now. There are still people who are alive.
Yes.
There are people watching right now.
Yeah.
Who knows what we are talking about.
Yeah.
Who know that when you speak to some of these things, you're speaking about them.
About them. Exactly. Let them listen. And if you think
I have a problem, because this is something that my kids or grandkids, nieces and nephews and friends will have to at some point come to grips with, because when people vie for office in this country and put themselves up for leadership at the highest level, there's a thing in law that says when you come to court, you must come with clean hands.
Clean hands.
It is the same for governance.
Some of the attorneys that tried to represent us, we were literally told by some of them, boy, it don't make sense when I go down the go. As I said, we had letters prepared by David Wonken, letters to take to Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation to give us statement of accounts. Because when in the inquiry, Errol Campbell, who was head of the FINSAC, was asked also what portion of the debtor's debt was sold to Jamaica Redevelopment. Was it at the point of what the balances were when after they had made certain payments or what? The answer was no. Jamaica Redevelopment got principal. Even though you don't pay half it, you still have to be paying from beginning again to Jamaica Redevelopment. If you want to
what's the story this not being given statements on your account? If your account is being taken over by the bank,
and you're entitled to it, all you have to do is send us a statement. Why is it where you say it is at? Why is it here? We want to see.
Why were they told not to provide statements?
Hold on, sir. Let me find the letter. This is the letter on Myers Fletcher.
Hold on to your seat, guys.
This is the letter on Myers Fletcher Gordon letterhead, signed by Sandra Minor Phillips. And this is to Errol Campbell. Dear sirs, we represent Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation, Inc., and have been asked to respond on its behalf to yours of November 3rd, 2008. As our client is the entity that stepped into your shoes as creditor of, and it named a debtor's name, which it would apply to all of us as debtors. We are astounded that you feel free to copy them, and in brackets you put an adverse party in the litigation at caption with your correspondence to our client, or to even contemplate divulging information to them at all, as any such communication would seem to constitute a breach of your contract with our client. We remind you that under your contract with our client, you have transferred to our client all underlined of your right to give and receive reports in relation to all loan agreements and credit and security reports. Furthermore, as of the closing date of your agreement with our client, all rights and responsibilities with respect to the servicing and administration of the assets passed to our client. Given the terms of our agreement, including those referred to above, it is inconceivable that you could be, one, contemplating giving any information of any kind to the debtors after the transfer of your interest in the receivable to our client, and two, asking our client to delay the exercise of its rights following the court's order that it is entitled to exercise same. Please ensure that you do not give any report of any kind to any debtor. You may instead refer them to our client for any information they need in relation to their accounts. We would also be obliged if you would tell us who, and it's an attorney name she mentioned, is, as we note that you have also copied him with our letter to our client, and it is signed by Sandra Minor Phillips, the wife of Peter Phillips. Okay? So she's basically telling him that the debtors are not entitled to any information. That is illegal. Because you can't go to the bank, go take out a loan, and then tell us they can't tell you what the balance is, how much you pay. No.
Yeah.
And you never borrow any money from Jamaica Redevelopment in the first place. But you see, what they did was, there is a portion of the agreement that the government made with Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation, which basically states that if any debtor should sue them or file anything against them, they would make sure that it does not go through, basically. In other words, they were prepared to bow down to Jamaica Redevelopment to anything and anything they want to do. That's the position they put us Jamaicans in.
So the letter is saying, do not provide any
information
to the debtor.
That's right. Why? No, you figure out why. Because if everything was on the up and up, why wouldn't you?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. But again, that coincides with the statement that was made by the former Minister of Finance when he said this stuff that he came across.
Make him head turn white. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what they have done, as a matter of fact, I have a lady that just the end of last year, she contacted me, said she has been looking for me for 2 years. And her father, she's living in Canada now. Her father lives in Florida, doing business in Florida. And a friend of theirs called the father to say that, man, I didn't know you were selling your house. If I know you were selling it, I would have bought from you. So the father asked, what are you talking about? I'm not selling my house. Him have a 3-story house down in St. Elizabeth. Him say, I'm not selling my house. Him say, but I see people coming in and out, walking, moving in things. And him say, what are you talking about? So eventually what he did, he hired an attorney firm in Jamaica here. And had them apparently looked up and see somebody's name on their title and had them connect with Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation. Well, the response that that firm got from Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation is basically telling them, I wish I could find the letter, it's basically telling them that that house has been sold from 2016 and they have no documentation on it because the statute of limitation has run out. Now, me no know how statute of limitation cannot run out on land because land don't move from place to place. Either me sell my piece to you and you sell it to Brother Smith over the other side and it go from him to Mr. Malcolm somewhere else. But the title is still there carrying all these.
Yes.
But guess what? Those titles are no longer at the titles office. They have moved those titles. All those with the illegal activities has been removed from the titles office.
Oh.
That's right.
Mr. Meshach Willis has joined us. Mr. Willis? Mr. Willis? You just unmute your mic. You can come across. Chuck Finley, I see you in the building. Good evening, sir. How you doing? Good evening, Sir Chuck. You joined us. I'm assuming that you must have a question for us. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing good, sir.
Good.
Miss
Baker.
Yes,
Miss
sir.
Baker.
Yes, sir.
I speak of FINSAC almost every day. It's one of the topic that is dear to my heart. I can tell you this. My first little saving pan, the little round pan with the hole in at the top.
Yeah.
I bring that to Century National Bank to open my account.
Wow.
That was my first bank account I opened with my little saving pan. And it locked down with my little saving pan in there. $540. Never forget it. Never get back my $540. And I speak of the atrocities of FINSAC every single day. But listening to you, listening to Meshach Willis last week and listening to you now, it is a totally different feeling. Right? I thought I knew what happened. I thought I knew the story. But listening to you as a grown man, we're 240 pounds, there's tears. And I just to hear the stories I want to go on. And the question I've asked all the while is, where you people get the strength from to still walk around? I don't think I could survive.
Yes, you have to give credit to the man upstairs, because when they formed the association, as I say, I had just come back from the States with no intention of staying in Jamaica. However, under the circumstances, I was forced to stay. And then really and truly, I would have to say that I think God stepped in at that point and give me the strength, because my family started being concerned. I was on Mutty Perkins every day. If it's not in the office, he used to call me at the Pegasus, find out what's happening. And I was talking to my sister on the phone one day, and she said to me, "There's someone else on your line." And until my telephone line started going crazy, I decided to call telephone company and check. And the guy came up to my house this Saturday, and he didn't work on a Saturday, and he fixed it and said, "Boy, I can't find what wrong is." And he looked at me and said, "Let me ask you something. Would it be possible that your line could have been tapped?" I said, "I don't know. If it is, I don't know. But why you ask?" Him said, "Because I can't find anything else wrong. What I'm leading to is your lines have been tapped." Him say, "I'm going to go check something and come back." So he left and went away. About 2 hours and came back. Him look at me and say, "Lady, just be careful. your line was tapped. And in the room and telephone company where that is done, it has to be given from higher orders, because that room is only one or two people would have a key and authority to get into that room. But I knew God had stepped in already, because I had had experiences that is unexplainable. And I had gone to my church and I spoke to my father about it. And he looked at me, he says, Yola, unless someone knows Jesus, they won't understand what you're going through. Because I literally got text messages, especially when I came back to Jamaica from Miami after I did the show. I got text messages and they came from no telephone number. They were just Bible verse that was giving me comfort, and it had at it ... Jesus. No telephone number. It's like, be of good cheer, I have overcome the world ... Jesus. And I got 4 of those for 4 mornings straight. And when I couldn't go to church, I set up a prayer room in the middle of my house that I still use.
Mr. Meshach Willis, you're here with us?
Yes, I'm here now, man.
Good. Greetings, man.
Can you hear me?
Yes, man. Loud and clear.
Yes. Greetings.
You can hear us as well.
Yes, I am.
Mr. Finley, the thing about it is that I have carried the burden of, sometimes I feel like I'm carrying it for the 44,000 people.
Yes.
But, it gives me, I think the comfort I get from giving it is that I'm not asking for money in return. I don't need money.
Right.
God carries me where I need to go.
You see, the thing that you and Mr. Willis and others who are speaking out against this thing, are speaking out about FINSAC, what you're doing is great, because you are putting the information out there that will guide how people go forward. It will guide the average Jamaican and how we think. And I think most importantly, it guides the political movers and shakers.
Yeah.
That what took place back in the 1990s, which saw Jamaica moving backward for about 30 years. We lost about 30 years because of what took place there. And if only the persons at the time who had the authority and the power, they had the wherewithal to stop it. They could have stepped in.
They could have stopped it.
And these bankers who were doing stuff, they could have done a lot of things different. They didn't do it. They turned away their head.
Yeah, they looked the other way.
Because it benefited them.
Exactly. I don't forget Sunday evening when I look out through my door, me see men stand up on the other side of the road and take picture and chatting. Ministers out there waiting, who want what?
Taking pictures of your house?
Yes.
Mr. Willis told us last week that it was one of his sons that came to say there were some men outside. Was that the case, Mr. Willis?
Yes, sir. My young son just came in the room, and when he came in, as he come in and said, Daddy, some men outside putting things out there. There's these 2 big strong arms man came in the room behind him and said, you have to leave today. I said, no, but I see me have my granddad, how can it that be? And right there, I was so shocked. Everything, I turned fool. I don't know what to do. I asked him if we can get a call. We call me liar. He said, no, they don't have any time for that. Wow. So only thing I could do, because I was looking for the liar number, I couldn't even find it. We were confused. So I just quickly put on some clothes and take a taxi and go down by his office. And when I reached there, he told me that there's nothing more he can do. Everything is out of his hand now.
Wow.
And just hand me back my document.
Yeah, well, that's how they used to come, because the morning they came to our house, Neville Box, who was the first president of the association, lived up the road from me, and he was passing my house and saw these guys out there, and the gate was locked, and Neville drove up to the gate and told the security at the gate to let him in, and him said no, he can't come in. And Neville just he was driving an SUV. Him just put it in reverse and then just rev it and knocked down gate and everything and drove right in and came upstairs and talked to me and said, Yola, I realize what's happening. I'm going to get you a truck to come and get your things and go out. And he did. But he was so upset that he passed all his wife on the road and didn't recognize her. Yeah.
But I tell you, when I went down by the lion, he gave me back the document and I come back home. When I come home, I can see my wife sit down and the children them sit down outside and some of the things them. And when you look on the street, everything line the street about 40 chain down the road. And it so happened that just as I reach, so I have a lady friend down the road and I call her and she drive and come up. And there's the rain come down. It's a piece of tarpaulin I have. And I could just put it over some of the things them and my wife and the children them stay under it. And the rain fall, everlastingly fall. When you look, there's a gully behind the house, behind the house, because there are another house above my house. That is the last house. But this gully run behind here. But when the rain fall hard, it come over and come into the road. It don't really trouble the house, but it come into the road. And I tell you, so the road flooded, and you can see the water pushing the things them aside. Because I have a room packed to the ceiling with some material, which I buy. There was a store closing down. And I have about $50,000 and I take it and buy out this stock them. I get it very, very cheap. It's a big truck me have to use and bring them come at the house. Those material me use them now, like people who make furnitures, them buy it from me to line the bottom of the settees and so on. And put over the bed base. They do about dive bed base and so. So I have a good market for it. And when you look, the whole of those material, because the man them who come, them alone couldn't manage it, so them go and call some other guys. That's what my wife didn't tell me. Because I went down, I wasn't there when all that was going on. Get some different guys to come to help them to show the things them outside. Right? And when them done, them put a lock on the gate and put two guards, one at this side and one at that side. Nobody can go in. Me say, I wouldn't like to see that happen to my worst enemy.
So, Mr. Willis, what you're saying is that while you're in the rain, there were actually guards placed at the door to keep you out?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, at the gate, not the door, at the gate.
At the gate?
Yes.
Nobody allowed to come in.
Nobody allowed to come in. Two guards, one at the side.
Mrs. Baker gave us a story there, Mr. Willis, about when your son, had an opinion as to how he could,
You remember, Mr. Willis, your son asked?
Yes. He told me that when I tried to tell him that, him to do the right thing. He mustn't think of anything evil or try to think of anything bad. Him said, but daddy, you been living, look what you have. Show me what you have. You've been going honest from so long and you don't have anything. So what you have? So you can't tell me, say, me if you do the right thing. You can't tell me if you do that. What me benefit you get out of that? Look how hard you work and what you have. But still me have to try and tell them that them not go that road.
So even at your lowest point, you were still a decent man to tell a child, look, not go that road.
You had to.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Had to.
Petal,
Yeah,
we're not hearing from you. This is your baby, FINSAC is one of the things that you champion, just like Chuck, Finley, and everybody else. Talk to us.
Good night. Good night. You can hear me?
Yeah, man, loud and clear.
Okay.
Yes.
Good night, Mrs. Baker.
Yes,
Good
ma'am.
night, Mr. Willis. Good night, Chopper. Good night, viewers.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Yes, Chopper, I'm telling you, I commend Mrs. Baker and Mr. Willis just for them being here to tell us their story tonight is just remarkable. It's heartbreaking, but at the same time remarkable for someone to be here to tell us the story, how it all went down.
Yeah, I've made up a motto out of it that I used to describe myself. It has been there, done that, seen it, had it, and had it done to me. Get any better than that.
I don't know, but this one, it's tough. It's really tough because we talk about it all the time. We discuss FINSAC, we watch the stories, but no, I mean, this conversation between yourself, Mr. Willis, from last week, and now with you, Mrs. Baker, it put a totally different spin, and not just a spin. It really opened your eye because I didn't know. I mean, I heard Mr. Willis last week mention that there were unanswered questions.
It humanized the traps.
His account, and the fact that persons within the bank was using his collaterals, and you came and validate that story as well, Mrs. Baker.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Now we're understanding why this FINSAC report, some persons really didn't want it to see the light of day.
Exactly. Because if the documents were not that long, but
Yes.
I could have taken out certain portions of them because I have all of the testimonies.
Yes.
All of them.
Go ahead, Chuck.
I tell you something. What happened? What used to happen in there back then is that because the government was so autopilot, so everybody doing what they feel like doing. There was nobody to oversee these people who work into the bank. So them just come and they just do as they like there, unknown to people. You understand? I remember there was a gentleman, I come at Mr. Wells' office one day when him tell me that my account, my monthly payment will be $105,000 per month. I set up a meeting with it. Coming from?
Where?
He was at Highland Life.
No, how much is it pay before?
Well, I didn't have a installment with him with that, because the agreement that we have is that when I draw down on the money, if I pay it back within a short time, it wouldn't add to my title. So I didn't have any idea that any money go to my title because as soon as I get bill, I only draw down on the money whenever I need it. And as I tell you, I had some good contract with Chilani Beach Hotel, Half Moon Hotel, Juta Company, and when they give me the order, I draw down on the money and buy the goods, sell it to them, bring back the check and give it to Mr. Wells. So I have no knowledge that anything would have add to my title. So when him tell me that me have to go pay $105,000 a month, me was shocked because how could I pay that? And the interest rate.
Let me ask you this though, Miss Baker. Mrs. Baker. SSL today, what occurred at SSL, is it anything comparable to what took place in FINSAC?
No, I don't think so.
I don't. It might not have been based on loans of people, but it's the same thing, just taking people money that don't belong to you.
Right.
Well, yeah, something like that, but it's not.
You see, is you put your money in there as an investment, but other people decide to use it for you.
Right.
You know, because the Bank of Jamaica testified, and they testified that they talked to the Minister of Finance, Omar Davis, and tell them that let us handle this thing, let us arrange with the debtors, let us just leave us, let us deal with it. And
Wow.
they said no.
But Miss Yola, when they start FINSAC, you know, FINSAC was to go and negotiate with the debtors them and settle the matter and that them own merit. But what they did, you know, they could not use FINSAC to do what they do, you know. So that's why they go and come with this thing, Reefing Trust. So they use Reefing Trust now as a subsidiary to FINSAC. Yeah. Then they use that one to transfer our titles to Reefing Trust. Then use Reefing Trust now, sell the asset to Jocelyn. That's what they did.
And the thing about it is that some of us, if we never had the bank managers that we were dealing with, if we never had good relationships with them, we would not have found out what was going on.
Oh my God.
Well,
what say you? See, we not join us there. We know.
Good night. Good night. Hey, Chopper, my heart bleed and no blood. And nothing but anger. You know, these gentle folks were robbed of their life savings and their livelihood. And I, as a 80s baby, was robbed of a Jamaica that could have been. You know, and me hurt when we listen to this, the greatest transfer of wealth
from the
poor to the rich, in the abolition of slavery. We actually had slavery after that was abolished in Jamaica by way of the transferring of properties from these individuals to the hands of richer men. It is something that I read it on paper, Chopper. We come and we discuss this in our communities and we read it, but to hear it from the lips of these individuals who have experienced the travesty of a government that was adamant that they need to remove the assets from these individuals and put it into their hands, it grieves me to my core.
And all we did was we followed the law. We followed the law because even the morning that they were putting our house up for treaty, they didn't know who I was at the time, per se, because I wasn't out there in the public. So I went down to the realtor's office, and the persons, there were about 5 or 6 persons there bidding for the house. And we had a caveat against the house because we found someone who would have bought back the house from us for more than what they wanted. And they refused it. They said no.
Well, so at the end of it wasn't about money then. This wasn't about money. This was about a personal agenda. Because if you have gotten somebody to pay a higher value for the house and they refused, it wasn't about money. It was about property. And based on my reading, FINSAC was created in its final destination is to return the wealth that FINSAC has gotten back to the private sector. But they found a way to shaft the individuals who own these property and to rob taxpayers too, because these monies that were used to buy up these non-performing assets and debts We're taxpayers' money.
They call it
course.
non-performing. They were not non-performing.
They were
They
very
call,
much
they call,
performing.
Exactly.
they call it non-perform and bad debt. But there was no bad debt. I in less than a year and a half. I pay back more than I pay. Well, I have it on paper where the statement that $1.5 million I pay back to the banks.
You could have bought another house.
Mr. Vegas,
I could
Miss
have.
Eula, and Mr. Missy. I see Mr. Vegas joining us, and I know he's also someone who is championing this, has been championing the FINSAC conversation for quite a while. Mr. Vegas?
Heal up, chops. Heal up, chops.
Yeah, man, give thanks, man. How you do?
Mr. Finley, jump off.
Yeah, man. We have Miss Baker here and Mr. Willis. We have
Hi, Miss Yola, and what's the gentleman name?
Mr. Willis, Mr. Meshach Willis.
Hi, Mr. Willis. How are you?
I'm not so bad, sir. Good night. Not bad at all.
Yeah, man. Big up on yourself, man. We're just happy that we actually get to hear from you guys in real flesh. It's not no recording. Our anger level is way up. We've been watching your stories for a minute now. And I've been saying to Chops, we need to do a documentary with these people where we can actually get the world to see what they went through. And I was just so happy that Chops get to get contact with you people and there are so much misinformation and lies out there. I remember speaking to some gentleman the other night, and I brought up the whole FINSAC thing, and they were telling me that, oh, you people actually took loans that you could not afford to pay back the mortgage. You guys took loans because there were unsecured loans and so forth and so on. And one of the gentlemen even went as far as to tell me that, oh, you guys get first preference to buy back the properties. And I was like, it's an alternative reality, and I'm happy that you are here now. But I just wanted to, just for people who are listening who may not have heard, or people who may have heard this type of rhetoric and are misguided by the truth. Can you just, any one of you can take those three arguments. One of which is, you guys got first preference to buy back the properties. I'll just three questions, just three things, main points that I picked out of the conversation the other night. So one of the conversations, one of the gentlemen said, you guys got first preference to buy back the properties. So I just want to speak on that a little bit. The second one is, you people taking loans that you could not afford to pay back the interest rate, and you took unsecured loans. So it was basically your fault taking loans that you could not pay for. So just to elaborate on that a little bit, so the person who not heard.
First of all, sir, how could we have gotten unsecured? If we had gotten unsecured loans, how come we lose our property?
Exactly.
The property is what we put up to secure the loan. That's number one. Number two, we never got. How come it is that when we offered to buy back the property, we were denied it and it was sold to someone else? I mean,
just a minute, Miss Eula.
Went down to the.
One second, Mr. Missy, coming to you. Go ahead, Miss Eula.
The morning when they were putting our house up for private treaty, I went down to the office because they didn't know who I was at the time, and there were three or four persons there offering to buy the house. And I mentioned to the guy who was doing the private treaty, I said, this property has a caveat on it. So how is it that you're selling it now? And he said, it doesn't matter, the caveat don't mean anything. Okay. So it's not that anything they tell you, if it comes from any government minister, it's a lie. Because as I said, as far as I'm concerned, every last one in that parliament is a criminal. And I will not take back my word on that, because what they're doing is criminal activities.
Well, make I tell you with my house now. My church wanted was to buy back the house because I keep on telling them that there's irregularity against my title and the money that they say I don't owe those money at all. They don't care about that. They don't business with it. And just to save the house, the church willing to buy back the house for me. I get a lawyer who go and talk to talk to them about it. The Griffin Trust people. No, Griffin, the Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation. And they said they gone through the deal with somebody already. And they cannot forfeit it. So they will not be able to go back on that, to sell us the house. Let's make the church buy back the house for me. And
So
the
your
lawyer that
church
I have,
was willing, Mr. Willis, your church was willing to buy
Yes.
back the house from FINSAC.
right. They
Just to
wanted
save you.
Right.
And they said no.
They said no. They want to know the cost, how much they was going to sell the house for, and to negotiate it. They said no, they cannot do that because they already have somebody in agreement to buy the house, so they cannot change it.
This was just late
I
at
have
the
a
time.
no, that's not
Can I chime in
Justin.
here?
This guy it all come
That's
from
the
the
Texas
same.
millionaire at the time who had those portfolios. Eh?
Yes, this is the same company, Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation.
Yes.
Yeah, they are the one. Yeah, and
But Chopper,
I get a lawyer to negotiate with them, and me and the lawyer go into one office with them, and shortly after that, the lawyer called me and tell me that she cannot work for me anymore because she working for them now.
Oh my.
So them buy her out, and everywhere you turn, they buy out the lawyers them.
So the lawyer that
They
was
buy out.
representing you
Yes,
in mid-year decided, said no way.
she can't go any further with me because
Is that even
she's
legal with you?
working.
No?
Mr. Chopper, I can tell you something. What Jamaicans don't understand now, we used to be on air with this almost every day. You don't notice it not on media in a media house anymore.
Well, we keeping it going, you know. We taking over from
Yeah,
multiple
because
people.
you not the regular media house. Because
Right.
what is happening is that government sponsors certain media houses, and in
Yes.
exchange for the sponsorship, they cannot carry FINSAC on it. I know that as a fact. I've been told from somebody in a media house on this. That's number one. The legal system, the attorneys will not represent us because government give them jobs, give them certain projects to do. And if them carry us, they will pull the project. So they can't deal with us. That's where we're at in Jamaica.
Well. I want to get Jason there.
But
Chaps,
Chopper,
is it-
in this
is it-
case, shouldn't they have gotten the first right of refusal?
Of
So
course.
my property has been deemed a non-performing thing, whatever they want to call it. First right of refusal is to make sure that the person who owns the property, gets the opportunity to buy back this asset.
I think
Right.
the argument,
The moral
the argument
and
that is
ethical
out
thing to
there,
do, isn't it?
the argument that is out there is if they are giving it back to the owners, the taxpayer will have to fund the remaining 75 cents in the dollar. Is there any truth that they offer the I think it's the same question, but just for clarity, because there's also some misinformation out there regarding the 25 in the dollar. Can you explain a little bit on that, please?
About the what?
25 cents in the dollar that the assets were sold for.
Truthfully, I don't know how they came upon what they sold it for, because like my home, the person who bought it for 22 million, and they are selling it for 85 US million. Okay, I don't know
Well,
how the arithmetic, but one of the things that I had mentioned to you, Mr. Chopper, I
Yes.
find the letter from Jamaica Redevelopment that wrote to the attorney. Reference is made to your letter of February 16, 2024. Read the subject, which is lot number 741 at Cardiff Hall in St. Anne. Please note that the property was sold under powers of sale in June 2016, which is approximately 8 years ago. Unfortunately, these records have been destroyed in accordance with the statute of limitations. You ever hear any property records destroyed?
Wow. Wow. Wow.
You don't, title go from person to person, and the title just keep transferring. They don't get destroyed.
That's a very important question I want to ask. Do you think you still owe money? Is it still
They didn't have any loan on it, sir. They didn't have any loan on it.
You the borrowers. Do you think they still have you on in the system as owing money?
I don't know.
I don't know. With me now, I don't know because when they sell my house, they still say I owe them almost $8 million. I don't get a letter from them that they discard it or whatever.
So maybe that grow without interest now. So you're gonna owe 10 times that or 20 times that.
20 times
no, but
that.
the thing about it, once they had sent your title to Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation, the Jamaica Redevelopment Foundation is who you are dealing with now. So whatever is owed, you can still arrange with them if the property has not been sold, because I know of a certain lady whose property was not sold, and she eventually got the money that they're asking her to pay, even though it was much more than the value, but she decided to pay it, and she's now awaiting to receiving back her property.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But it's a hell of a lot more than she ever owed.
Well, she probably is one of the lucky one, but like me, I never get that opportunity. My church, as I said, willing to buy back the house from them. They just want to know the cost, what they want for it, and they refuse it, right? And the person who buy my house, she never live into it.
All right, go ahead.
Quick question, sorry, just a last question. Is there any truth to it that it was mostly rich people took those the loans? Maybe you can.
Well, I'll tell you something. I don't know the financial capacity, but I have a list of persons who supposedly got write-offs, which includes some government members. So if you want to call them rich, I guess. What can I say? I have no measuring stick to know.
At this stage of the game, I just we have a good laugh. Go ahead with the question. We have some.
But Miss Eula, remember when Mr. Davis said that they divide up the asset in two sections, and the one that him call bad debtors, that's one him give away to Janice Jocelyn, and one that the good debtors them transfer to NCB.
Right.
Because at the time NCB was too
big to fail.
Too big to close.
To fail, yeah.
So those rich people where they're probably talking about, those assets go to NCB and they go negotiate and their levels how them can do it and get back them property or whatever it may be. But we know them called bad debtor. They just give away our thing just Keep up everything. Like when you buy something
Bulk.
like
Bulk.
in a bulk,
Yeah.
you just give it away in a bulk. Then you pick out maybe what good, and do as you like with it. What good you can, why you can get a bigger money for it to take it, what you can get a smaller money for it. That is something like that them do.
We have
You
some questions
understand?
here for some folks who are, and guys, we only have about 12 minutes to go. 11 minutes, a matter of fact, to go. Yeah, go ahead with the question.
My question is it that most of the properties were purchased by government, like the PNP officials?
Most of the properties were purchased by who?
By persons who affiliated to the PNP party.
Well, based on what Mrs. Baker is saying, that there are persons from both JLP and the PNP who would have made purchases that is associated with FINSAC. So I wouldn't want to say that it was purely one side.
Yeah,
Yes,
no.
I would agree that there might be more on one side than the other. But from where I sit, I would be able to say whether or not. And what I got from Mrs. Baker is that there were persons from both sides who got it. Yes.
It pains my heart. I can't believe that people who we put in government really treat us as the Jamaican people like that.
Yeah, and you're talking about a group of people who were among the movers and shakers. And when I say movers and shakers, they people like Mrs. Baker, Mr. Willis, they made up
My
the
husband
class of
was in
Jamaicans.
business for 50 odd years.
Exactly. They were the ones who drive the economy. Jamaica almost collapsed in 1978, 79, 76, 78, 79. We're on the verge of collapsing. It is people like these who were industrious and who took chances and hired people. Mr. Willis, in his own right, had persons who worked for him. I'm certain Mrs. Baker and her husband
Yeah, well,
had a lot of
and
persons.
not just that, but at one point in time, we got together with most of the entrepreneurs who were members of the association and asked them if any of them have any interest in getting back in any other type of business. It doesn't have to be the same business you were in before, but if you were given the opportunity, would you want to get back in business? And a lot of them said yes, and we wrote letter to the government, giving the names of the people, the type of business that they do want to go back in and everything. And we got no response.
No help, nothing at all. Door closed.
Well,
Nothing.
I tell you, that government in the past, they just close the back and poor people in Jamaica. They close the door on us. Close the door on us. No matter what you try, you cannot open that door so that they close on us.
If no, you have a question for Mr. Willis or Mrs. Baker?
I think the entire Jamaica should be blamed for what transpired in Kenya.
You think the entire Jamaica should be blamed?
We all sit down and watch the situation unfold.
How would you blame Jamaicans on a whole?
We should have taken a stand.
How? What do you think that the average Jamaicans should have done at the time?
We should have stand up for these people. It was everything supported came on there and spoke about themselves. Right? These people were warned not to take the direction they were taking. And they still took the direction and destroyed these people's livelihood. I know I sit and I watch business, and as a youth, I was saying, imagine the person who owned the business, when the people came from forward, they leave Jamaica after stress. Every week they had to go to the hospital. And when I see that person's business being collapsed, I were blaming the person who got the business. I didn't know what was going on. It is now that I become.
You know, there was a gentleman that had a window company.
Yeah, hold on there, F Noy. Go ahead, Miss Baker.
There was a gentleman that had a window and door business down Mullines Road.
Yes.
He had a Spanish name. I don't remember his name right now. Jamaica Redevelopment advised him that he owed $12 million. And he went overseas and got family and friends to help him collect up the money and him getting 12. The morning he was going down there, he called me and he says, Miss B, me on my way down to Jamaica Redevelopment. Thank God the day come, I can pay them off now. And I said to him, praise God. Just thank God that you can do it. And within about an hour, he called me back. And when he called me and I answered the phone, I didn't hear him. He wasn't talking. He was silent. And I called his name. I said, hello, what's happening? Talk to me. And he wouldn't talk. He said, I have to call you back later. I can't talk right now. And I knew something went wrong. I don't know what it was, but I knew. So I waited. And when he called back, he says, can you imagine? They tell me that I owe 12 million and I'll find the money, 12 million, carry down there, pay them the money. When me pay them and then give me the receipt for the money, then tell me, say me owe another $7 million for interest charges. He had a heart attack within a week. His wife died 5 months after. This is not old people. His wife was probably in her late 40s, early 50s. Died and left a child, a young child.
You don't remember his name, Miss Yola?
Lord have mercy. Hold on. Hernandez.
Remember that name, chaps?
Yeah, man.
Hernandez. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And Miss Yola, you remember Mr. Lewis, the one who used to make the transformer for the
Mr. Lewis. Yeah, what they did to Mr. Lewis, they went because he refused to sell them. They offered to buy it and he refused. They went down to his property in the country and he was used to make the transformers for JPS.
Yes.
They went down there and all of the barrels of oils and things them have down there, they just bust them open and the whole property covered with it.
Oh my
Had a
God.
heart attack. And his son died shortly thereafter.
So the chaps is not just people who committed certain
suicide.
behavior.
Some of them just died from heart attack.
But it's just stress and all them things that played a role.
The stress.
Well, look, you know, like I tell you this part what happened to Mr. Lewis. When the last thing that happened to him, they sold his dwelling house in Mandeville and come to evict him out of the house. And when they come the morning to evict him out of the house, just like what they do to us, him just him get senile same time and say, oh, not my house, not my house, not my house. And him start to walk around and him collapse and then take him down to the hospital. And 2 weeks after that, him died. 2 weeks after that, him died.
Ah, yeah.
That's how devastating that system was.
This one is tough.
To us in Jamaica.
Sorry, Chopper. Quick, somebody was asking in the comments about what I have to ask her about Mr. Levy, but Mrs. Baker already said that he was unalived. He was unalived by unknown assailants. And also even Mr. Jocelyn. His death was
suicide. Not suicide. He drowned, and I understand he was because Dennis Jocelyn, you know, when he came to Jamaica and he realized what was happening, that the government wasn't dealing properly. and he used to talk about it because he used to go out socially with them, and he hear them talking about all this and thought that he was in league with them. But what what has what happened after that? He went out to the Galapagos Island and swimming, and I hear he was an excellent swimmer, and he drowned. People have
Them take him 3 points.
like somebody tell him, but
Because he
well,
he was not in on all that shenanigans, it appears.
no, not necessarily, not
Oh
necessarily.
my.
Well, next week we are going to be talking to Mr. Godfrey Dyer, Mrs. Baker, Mr.
Yeah,
Willis,
okay.
and we
Yeah.
will also get a side from him because he was also one of the persons who lost his property. He managed to
Yep.
reclaim it, but his story is also one of the stories that we'll highlight. We're
Yeah.
going to take a break. When we come back, guys, we're going to give these honorable folks the last word. We're at 10 o'clock. We'll take a break and then we're going to come right back. Mr. Vegas, I know you're working on us getting a documentary together to highlight. Which one of the books? Mrs.
Hmm?
Mrs. Baker wrote a book? No?
I'm in the process of doing it,
She's
but
in
it's
the
not
process
finished.
of doing one now. So that's coming. So you can stand
Mr.
by for
Willis,
that.
We really look
Mr.
forward to
Willis
it.
has one.
Yeah.
For all of this information, all persons can go and get all of this information.
Yes,
So,
well, go ahead, Biggie.
the gentleman that always out of half a tree, is it
Yes.
Mr. Willis?
Mr.
Yes,
Willis.
ma'am.
Yes.
Check with us right there.
Mr. Willis.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
We have Chops has his number, so we're definitely going to keep in touch here.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
man.
man. Last
And
week we did a
trust
little
me,
thing and
you are
collected some funds for him too.
you're
So
a great the survivors are like superheroes, you know. Trust me, because anyone that survived anything like what FINSAC put these people through and the government of Jamaica during that time. Trust me, you guys are superhero, and your story is not gonna go, unheard,
yes.
because people must understand why we have to be vigilant, why we have to vet people properly before we just run behind people and support people. So we thank you for sharing your story, and I'm looking forward to speaking to you. I really want to get a proper documentary where generation to come will see it. So people can know why Jamaica is still at the place where it's at, and why we did not move forward in the economic boom.
Even though we had the people in
Yes,
place.
yes.
Yes.
But one quick question I'd love to ask before you wrap up, chaps, because I think it must be said by the victims. Who do you blame more? Just maybe quickly from both of you. Who do you blame more? Do you blame Dan Crawford? Because so many people blame Dan Crawford for this. Or do you blame the government during that time?
No, I
The
don't blame
government.
John
A
Crawford.
quick comment is the government to be blamed,
The government.
because the government do take policies that them wasn't good for the country.
What I will do when I come on next week, I'll let you
Yes.
know why, as far as I'm concerned. Everything was at the foot of
All
the
right.
Next
Keep-
week we're gonna
keep
deal.
staying
We're
strong.
gonna have you on next week as well, Mrs. Baker, and you'll be talking about the cause of
Yeah.
FINSAC, which is a more
Yeah, man. We look forward to that.
Yeah.
Keep
Mr.
staying
Vegas,
strong,
Right.
Mr. Willis.
Mr.
Yes,
Vegas,
sister.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
sent
yeah.
you the Mr. Willis information
Yeah,
now, but
yeah. Oh, yeah. Are you listening to me? Yeah, man. Give
yes,
thanks. Yeah,
yes.
man, Mr. Willis, man. We've been trying to get in contact with you for a minute, and we're just happy to say we touch base with you, because trust me, your story really touch, a nerve.
Yeah.
So big up yourself. We're happy to say we can talk to you, and it's not just a phantom story. Big up yourself, Miss Yola.
Thank you.
I'm looking forward to speaking with you,
Okay.
if it's possible in the future.
Sure.
And one thing I just
Okay.
wanna say, last week we We ask for people to pledge for Mr. Willis because we know he's in his 70s, still trying his best to keep his head afloat, selling his little things. Um, he is in need of some financial assistance, and a lot of people pledged last week, but we haven't received a lot of them. So I'm asking for all the people who made a pledge last week. It's still not too late for you to pledge something to Mr. Willis. He really needs it. He got notice from where he's living.
And if
And
anybody knows of somewhere that he can live, somewhere decent, somewhere where he
Well,
has
what
road.
we really propose, is that the government of Jamaica, this government, who has lots of program in place now that can assist people, and I believe that the government, Mr. Andrew Holness, our government, my prime minister, can and should assist Mr. Willis with a whole post. I don't know what they require. Well, I know what the requirements are, and I've been trying to get from Mr. Willis if he's in a position to fulfill any of those requirements. For example, identifying
A
land,
property, land or
property
something.
where family members or whomever. But either way, I will have to escalate this further and to see if we can lobby on his behalf. At least allow him to depart this earth with some level of dignity.
Yeah.
The
he's
Yeah.
government,
60%
Jamaican government,
disabled.
owe it to him.
Mr. Willis, how are your children?
Well, they are there, they're not doing as well as I wanted them was to, but they are there, just moving around, not in any very strong way.
He lost one of his daughters recently too.
And I lost one of my daughter in
Condolences.
December last year.
Condolences.
So they
We'll
were
talk here.
speaking.
We'll talk. I'll definitely
They-
have your link. So as you're gonna hear from
We
me
will,
very, very, very soon.
we will start to
Okay.
have a
All right,
conversation
Miss
with whomever
Yola.
we need to
Thank
have
you
it
so
with.
much, Miss Yola, and stay strong here.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
man. Thank you,
Okay.
Vegi.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
we
man.
will
Bless up
have the
yourself,
Yes.
chap.
conversation with whomever we need to have it with, and we will try
Okay.
to lobby the government and to see if there's any way that they can. And I know this government will. Mr. Holness is that type of person. He has that
Chopper,
heart. Yes.
Chopper, I'd like the viewers to know Mr. Willis is 74 years old. He's 60% disabled. He's lost 60% of his physical functioning. Even though he's only 40% able-bodied, he still does his best. He tries his best to sell little snacks, little this. He's not putting out his hand begging. He is the type of person that is willing to work. And like I said, right now he's in a situation where he has received notice. And I know had it not been for this situation that he was put into, he would have been better off. He had his own house. He's basically now homeless. So I'm pleading, please, guys, please, whoever made a pledge, last week we posted his account information. Chopper,
Our
you don't
Phil,
know?
our Phil Gale is asking how we can contribute. Just touch base with Petal and just leave our number or something. There's a number here. My number is 8660675, or you can touch base with Petal and she'll coordinate. They do all the coordination as it relates to contributions. You can reach out to her. But what we are committed to do is to have the conversation, whether we have to write to the office of the Prime Minister, and to see if we can ask for some assistance as it relates to one of those hope house. I think the government, look, let me tell you something. When government wrong people, it doesn't matter which political party assume the office. You assume the problem. When the Rastafarians for Coral Gardens, way back in the days, were quote unquote wrong by government, it is this anti-Holness administration that apologize and put systems in place for them to be compensated. I still believe that there are FINSAC people now today, like Misha Willis, who are in dire need of assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And if it doesn't matter who did it, whether it was done under the PNP, I don't care. who is in office now must recognize that a wrong was done to these people, and we can fix it. I believe. I know my government, they'll fix it. We just need to have the conversation, and I have every confidence in the world that it can be fixed.
Thank you, sir.
One thing,
we'll get a
one thing I
chance.
would like to say.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Omar Davis said into the inquiry, what happened to me and Miss Baker should never happen.
Yes, even
he
him
admit that it should never happen.
Yes.
And yet still, they never try to do anything to help us.
Well, I think this government can help, and I think we should pen a letter to the after the Prime Minister. If we have a walk, we're going to drop it off to Mr. Police. I will do it. But I believe that you are 70 plus years old now, sir, and whatever amount of years that God have planned for you to be on earth, at least allow you to depart this earth with some level of dignity. Let it not be said that the JLP government inherited a situation, though they were not the ones who created it. But let it not be said that they did nothing at all about it. Right? They were the ones. It's the JLP that now decide, finally, that they will no longer release a FINSAC report, but instead, they will release the FINSAC transcript. As we speak now, I'm assuming, that transcript is being uploaded. And we have to commend the government for that. But I want to take the commendation further. And I would love to ask them that at least one victim, Miss Eula, at least one, I know you will echo that, Mr. Willis, the government can assist him. And I think that would be a sign that the government, it's not just accept responsibility, but at least you take on the task of releasing the transcript, take it a step further. Let us do something for Mr. Willis.
I hope so, sir, because we did ask Audley Shaw when he was Minister of Finance to help Mr. Willis, specifically Mr. Willis. And his response to me was, he can't help Mr. Willis because if him help Mr. Willis, other people going to want help.
Well, look, Mr. Willis is what we know about right now, right at this time, that is in dire need of help. And if it means that there is more to be helped, let's help them.
Yeah, okay.
The country has the capacity to do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
The country is not where it was during the 1990s, Miss Eula. We are much better today than we were 30 years ago, thank God. And if it is that we are doing better, the value, the measure of how you can measure success, the yardstick of measure is how you treat the most vulnerable among us.
That's right.
If the JLP want to be recognized as having a heart, look at people like Meshach Willis.
I agree with you, 110%.
Right? If you really, when Bruce Golden won in 2007, we rode the back of FINSAC into victory. The JLP rode on the back of FINSAC and Trafigura into victory. Meshach Willis is one of the FINSAC victims. The JLP government have a responsibility and a duty to do something for him.
Agree with you.
Nobody's supposed to have beg feet either. They should have find him anywhere there and help him.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Totally right, sir.
Like, believe you me, even though I've been going out on the street there, it's not an easy task. But I still have to do it. And sometimes people look at me in a certain kind of way with some kind of scorn. Some people, not everybody.
Hold your head up. You did nothing wrong. The only crime you committed in the 1990s was to have ambition and want the best for your family. That's the only crime you commit. That's the only crime the entrepreneurs in Jamaica did, you know. The only wrong they did was they did not sit down and decide to take their money and buy government papers and go up on the North Coast, Miss Eula, and cock up them foot and collect profit.
Yeah.
They were the financial engineer like some of them what we know. who use government papers and become wealthy billionaires.
That's right.
You guys did stuff that hired people and make people life better, and you
That's
were
right.
penalized for it.
Yeah.
So don't feel bad, Mr. Willis. You did good. You did
Thank
good.
you very much. Thank you.
And I
Thank
think
you,
this
sir. Thank you.
government, I know my prime minister. If I know Andrew Holness the way I know him, Dr. Holness the way I know him, I know that when your matter is placed before him, I know that this government will do something to assist you, sir. And at least give you a chance to enjoy some level of dignity before you depart this earth.
Thank you. Thank
Over to
you.
you.
Thank you,
Speaker,
sir.
thank you so much. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
you.
much.
And
No
we will
problem,
see you
sir.
next week. Mr.
Okay.
Willis,
Yes,
we will
sir.
keep in touch. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Fredman, we appreciate your help and
Okay.
everybody else.
Good night.
Yeah.
Mr. Willis and
Good.
Mrs. Baker will keep in touch. Good night to you.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Okay,
Thank you.
Petrol. Thanks. Thanks a
Yes,
million.
man. Good night. Good night. And
Thank you.
thanks for thank you for everything. Thanks.
Yeah,
Just
man.
thanks.
No problem, my brother.
Big thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, everybody. Much appreciated. Thank you all for tuning in and participating. And thank you all for allowing me to rant and rave and carry on. Divy Martin, my brother. Big up yourself. Good to see you, Orlando. Davis, enough respect to you. You know, there are some things that we can do, and we can do it without any fuss. If there's one thing I know, if the case, not if, when the case of Mr. Meshach Willis is brought before the Prime Minister, I am 100% confident that he's going to do something about it, and he's going to do right by Mr. Willis. These are people who suffered because of bad economic model pursued by the then Minister of Finance, Dr. Omar Davis. I know Andrew Holness, Dr. Holness, and I know the administration that I support, the JLP. I know that they will find a way to ensure that people like Mr. Meshach Willis is assisted and given a chance to depart this earth whenever the good Lord says time for him to come. At least he will depart this earth with some level of dignity. He did nothing wrong. All he did, the only crime Meshach Willis commit is that he wanted, if you're coming to the box, folks, you need to mute your mic, please. The only crime that Meshach Willis would have committed, and others, is being ambitious, industrious, and work hard. Miss Eula Baker, the same thing. She's in perhaps a little bit better position than Mr. Willis, and we love her, and we appreciate her work. We appreciate her for being bold and brave enough to talk about this thing the way she have done it and continue to do. Big up yourself, Miss Eula Gray. Much respect to you and for your bravery. Thanks to everybody for passing through. Wendy Brown, big up yourself. Electro, big up yourself. John Black, Marlene P. Samantha Gordon, big up yourself. Who else we got? Bert Plus, Colin White, big up yourself. Good to see you. Garfield Reed, big up yourself, my brother. Novlet, what's going on with you, Novlet Brown, aka Navi? Barrington, big up yourself. Fitzroy Green, good to see you. You are in the building. Big up yourself, big up yourself, big up yourself. Dr. Hero, big up yourself. David Walfall, big up yourself. Lovable Child, big up yourself. Arphil Gale, big up yourself. And enough respect to Ivan Tabes, or Tobis, big up yourself. Who else we got? Eva Lewis, what's going on with you? Affectionate Forest Bridge, big up yourself. Marlene P. again, big up yourself. Samantha Gordon and Donald Divi. Mivy, my brethren, big up yourself. Enough respect. Cassine Henry, big up yourself. Good to see you as well. Yeah, but thank you all. Thank you everybody for joining us. It was a pleasure over there on our YouTube channel. If you're not yet following our YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. Yeah, if you're not yet following our YouTube channel, guys, please go ahead and do so. And if you're on TikTok, please follow us on TikTok as well. Chops Media on TikTok, Chops Media on YouTube, Chops Media on X, and Chops Media on Facebook. Thank you all. Enough respect. Appreciate it. See you next week when we'll be talking to the man himself, the man from Outer St. James, the man who was FINSAC as well. And he had an opportunity to get his property back. And we'll be having him on live next Sunday. And folks, we're not going to stop there. We are going to continue until we can get to people like Mr. Don Crawford. We would love to speak with him before he departs this earth. Godfrey Dyer, he'll be on. And who says we could get to talk to Dr. Omar Davis? Why not? I have a few questions for him. But anyway, folks, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you all. Good night. Peace. Peace be unto you. I'm out.
Good night.